Good morning, and welcome to this meeting of the Court Reporters Board. I have a few housekeeping matters to share before I call the meeting to order, beginning with a reminder to everyone that this meeting is being recorded and webcast. Today's meeting will run in accordance with the Open Meeting Act as required by law. I would ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. You may notice board members accessing their laptops, phones, or other devices during the meeting. They are using the devices solely to access the board meeting materials that are in electronic format. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. I would ask that if you're comfortable, if you do make public comment here in the room, if you're comfortable when you approach the table, lower your mask for ease, and we've got plenty of room for social distancing. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. To better assist the board in accurately transcribing the minutes of the meeting, members of the public who make a comment may be asked to disclose their name and association. However, disclosure of that information is not required by law and is purely voluntary. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you agree with the prior speaker, please do not repeat the comments, but rather state that you agree with the comments already made. I want to mention Ms. Brewer won't be participating due to a recent surgery. She will be checking in and following along as her health permits. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Bruning please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Sunkees?
Present.
Ms. Hurt?
Present.
Ms. Brewer is absent. Mr. Manayan?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Tugare?
Present.
Quorum reached.
Thank you. I would like to... How is that? Is that better? I'll try to speak closer. Thank you for letting me know. I would like to welcome our new board member, Arteen Manayan. Mr. Manayan is an attorney in the land use and public policy, regulatory, and political law practice of Meyer Brown, LLP's Los Angeles office. He primarily represents investors and developers in all aspects of the real estate entitlement and development process, focusing on land use entitlement matters, helping developers navigate state and local regulations and authorities, government outreach, and California Environmental Quality Act compliance. Mr. Manayan, I look forward to working with you. Welcome.
Thank you for that.
Before we begin, I would like to remind the board members that we will be taking a roll call vote on all action items. Agenda item number 1. Our first agenda item is public comments for items not on the agenda. Before we invite speakers to begin, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for a decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they could provide information to the board members that is outside of the record, which is in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Therefore, such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. The board can receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. Board staff is available to speak with you about any pending matter. In addition, the board would ask that the public address the board as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members and is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. No other action can be taken on the item at this meeting. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. With that, is there anyone wishing to offer public comment?
This is the moderator, and we do have a request for public comment from a Webex attendee, although if you choose to take in-person commenters, that is certainly your prerogative.
How about if we start with online?
All right.
I would say, do we have, moderator, do we have comments online?
We have one raised hand from an attendee logged in as Priscilla Gwaltney. Priscilla, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone so that you may make your comment.
I would say, Ms. Gwaltney, welcome. As a reminder, and this is to everyone who will be making comments, as a reminder, please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if you choose, please identify yourself and your association for the record.
Okay. My name is Priscilla Galtney. I'm the CCRA Support Our Students Chair. I have 3 questions. The first question, will the board consider a way to provide applicants test scores after their exams? Now that it's online, I believe they're not given results from what I've heard. I know when you take the RPR, you're provided a pass rate a few weeks later, what your score was. So if you're not willing to provide applicants with their test scores, why not? And then question number 2, will the board consider listing RPR applicants, the schools in which they attended, on the statistics page? If not, why? Because as of now, they're just listed as RPR. You don't know which school they attended, and many prospective or even current students look at the exam results to see, which school maybe has a better pass rate. And it's really not fair that the RPR students, they're very successful with that pass rate, and they cannot tell which school those applicants went to. And then number 3, due to technical glitches and issues with audio on past CSR exams, I mean, I know it happens personally because I've taken the RPR and I've had technical issues before. So anyway, would the board consider having 1 in-person exam a year? And I say that because we need to do whatever we can to get CSRs passing, and if that's one more way to help, which maybe they can be the ones taking the in-person depositions because they're having a hard time covering them. So if we can have 1 in-person test exam, and if not, why? And that's all I have.
Thank you.
And I see no further requests for public comment from Webex attendees.
Ms. Benner, are you able to address any of those?
It's not appropriate for us really to engage with that during the public comment because there are items not agendized. However, if Ms. Gwaltney wants to bring these up when we're talking about the exam, I think I can address some of them. Some of them I need to check with staff, but Priscilla, if you don't mind bringing that back when I get to the exam portion during the meeting. Otherwise, I made notes, and hopefully I can remember to hit them.
Thank you, Ms. Benner. Then we'll move to public comment in the room.
The microphone is not functioning in the room.
How's that? Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I'll try again.
I want to say, it's good to see you in person,
Yeah,
Charlotte.
it's been a few years.
This aside.
Yes, thank you. My name is Charlotte Mathias, California Certified Shorthand Reporter, number 9792 RPR, and I speak fast, so I apologize. Anyone trying to practice? I do agree that when we get to the portion on exam, I will also bring that up, because I think we should do one in person. It is a big difference taking remote depots versus in person, and I think we're doing a disservice to people not being able to take the test in person at least once a year. I still think the remote is great for people out of state that want to try to pass our exam. Yay, go for it. But in person does help for people who need to take the exam. Second, there seems to be a lack of communication from the board to the public and licensees and firms. It's been a year since we've gotten a CRB today. There's been quite a lot of action happening since last September with SB 241, and we've heard pretty much nothing from the board on that. And I know I've questioned the board, sending emails to different people on the board requesting more information come out before the deadline, and really we got nothing. So I'm hoping that you guys will put a better foot forward here and get communication out. That is major that this board communicate with the public on what is happening. And this bill was 241 was a big changer in how court reporting is conducted in the state, and we are still in the dark on really what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you for that information. Are there any other public comments? Okay. So to both our speakers that brought public comment, I want to say thank you for bringing information to the board. I will move on to our next agenda item, number 3, approval of the January 26, 2022 meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the board members?
I'd like to move approval of the meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second Denise Tabati.
So we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes and a second. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
And this is the moderator. I am turning on the Q&A option in Webex in case anyone would like to utilize that, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of the screen. And I do not see any requests for public comment from Webex.
Thank you. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll to vote on this agenda item?
Thank you. Ms. Brewer is absent. Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Mr. Manayan?
I'll have to recuse myself since I wasn't at the last meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Tabati?
Aye.
Ms. Dunkeys?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Turning to our next agenda item, I would like to welcome Brian Clifford, Senior Planning and Implementation Manager with the Department of Consumer Affairs, who will be presenting the board with an update.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide the Department of Consumer Affairs update today. My name is Brian Clifford with the Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office, and I have a few DC updates, and we'll also let you know of some recent personnel changes. The governor recently signed Senate Bill 189 on June 30th, which reinstitutes through next July the remote meeting provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act that were in place during the pandemic. The changes took effect immediately upon signing. DC is asking boards to complete a public meeting survey to track costs for your board meetings in order to be able to compare costs for in-person and WebEx meetings, since this legislative change is temporary. We have distributed the surveys to all boards and bureaus and ask that they be completed within 30 days after each meeting held. Should you have any questions, please reach out to me or Board and Bureau Relations. Though legislation is passed allowing for remote meetings, we are reminding boards that choose to hold in-person meetings of the safety measures, best practices, and recommendations for holding public meetings. When planning for upcoming meetings, please remember, all board Bureau members and staff are expected to follow the state and local public health guidelines that apply in the area where meetings are held. Face coverings are strongly recommended for all board members and staff at meetings. The California Department of Public Health strongly recommends that individuals continue to mask in indoor settings. Please post face covering guidance signage at your meeting check-in or entrance. Prior to meeting in person or at a remote location, members still need to submit vaccine verification to DCA's Office of Human Resources or be subject to COVID-19 testing. Next, I'd like to give an update on the Enlightened License Project. We are pleased to announce the inaugural report of the Enlightened Licensing Project is now available and was distributed to all boards and bureaus on May 13th. This innovative and collaborative project was started to streamline and enhance licensing processes by utilizing the knowledge and expertise of subject matter experts within DCA boards and bureaus. This project was conducted in partnership with the Board of Registered Nursing. After a thorough assessment of some of BRN's licensing processes, the project co-chairs provided recommendations to introduce new ideas and implement best practices for critical licensing activities. We held a brown bag event on June 1st to review the recommendations with all boards and bureaus, as DCA hopes that other boards and bureaus can learn from this report and implement recommendations where applicable. We believe it is so important to learn from each other and to share our knowledge. We will be turning to enforcement next, and we'll be reviewing the enforcement processes at a board through this enlightenment process, utilizing enforcement subject matter experts. DCA also recently held a brown bag meeting with executive officers and bureau chiefs on July 5th to roll out changes to DCA's regulation development and approval process. These changes were also discussed and approved by DCA's executive officer and bureau chief cabinet. DCA shared documentation on the process and changes with all boards and bureaus. Please reach out to Board and Bureau Relations, though, if you did not receive the documents. It is with great sadness that we announce some transitions within our Board and Bureau Relations unit. Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, left DCA on May 13th. Additionally, Brianna Miller has accepted another position and left DCA on June 10th. DCA appreciates the support and service Brianna and Carrie have provided to our boards and bureaus. They have both been a huge asset to the department. I'd like to assure you, though, that during this transitional period, DCA's Executive Office and Board and Bureau Relations will continue to ensure continuity of services to all boards and bureaus. If you need anything at all, please contact the DCA Member Relations email or call the DCA Executive Office directly. DCA will be holding its summer board leadership meeting on July 26th. These quarterly meetings are attended by board presidents and vice presidents, executive officers, and DCA leaders, and provide the opportunity to discuss important and emerging issues as a group. If you have any suggested agenda items for this upcoming meeting, please send them to the DCA Member Relations email. And lastly, board members are required to complete the board member orientation training within 1 year of appointment and reappointment. The final training of 2022 will be offered on October 12th. Members can register through DCA's Learning Management System, or LMS. The BMOT is required for all newly appointed and reappointed members, but is available as a refresher to all members and executive officers. Again, please reach out to Board and Bureau Relations with any questions. And as always, DCA is here to help. And if there's anything we can do to assist, please just let us know. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clifford. Our next agenda item is number 5, the report from our executive officer. Ms. Fenner, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. I'll start off my report with a review of the budget. On page 22 of the board meeting materials, we have the expenditure projections for fiscal month 11. So we're very close to the end of the fiscal year. There will be some additional expenses that will be added in as we close out that budget. I'm happy to take any questions on the budget.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I have a few. Maybe the first one, are all of our official positions filled that we have staff-wise?
Yes, so we do have a new receptionist that has been with us 6 weeks, I think, approximately, May 1st. Working out very well. We're very pleased to have her on staff. So it's very difficult to hear you, Ms. Fenner. Let me try pulling it closer. Is this better? Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. Yes, so we have everybody, all of the staff positions filled.
Okay. And then as it relates to the business modernization and starting that phase of work that we need to do, how is that going to impact our current budget, if at all?
I have that coming up. If I can delay your question, or I can address it now, whichever you prefer. Do you want me to just go into that? We can take it out of order.
No, we can wait. We can wait.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I have a couple comments, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Any other board members with questions or comments? Then I will just, I just have a question in regard to the negative numbers in the balance under printing, communications, and postage. So we build the budget based on last year's numbers, and we don't really track the items exactly on the line items, if that makes sense. So obviously, anything to do with printing will hit there. Sometimes we get within what we had budgeted, sometimes we do not. As long as the bottom line we do not go over, then it's okay. It is possible to ask accounting to realign the figures. Traditionally, we do not do that, because if we do need to make any kind of augmentation changes or requests from the Department of Finance, it's helpful to be able to go back several years and show where the shortfall is. So if we realign those numbers, then we lose that historical continuity. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any questions from the online folks?
This is the moderator, and we've opened up the Q&A in Webex, or if you choose, you can raise your hand to ask a question or make a comment. If you'd like to use the Q&A feature, it is the question mark, usually found in the bottom right of your computer screen, and you would type the word comment into that text box and click send. And I do not have any requests at this time for comments from online attendees.
Hello, it's Charlotte again. On the budget, I didn't really read the entire budget, but I was wondering if, let's see if I can go back. Back in November of 2019, SB 241 was essentially a different bill, and I believe it was Kimberly Durso, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was her. She asked how the board was going to deal with enforcement and the cost of enforcement once new registered firms were brought in. And the response from the board was that the registration fee would take care of that, so there wouldn't be really an added cost for the board to have enforcement issues taken care of. But upon reading the regulatory information from the board on the registration, it seems that it's costing you more to register them than you are taking in. So you're actually in the hole on registering firms that need to register. So we're back to the question on budget. How are you going to be able to enforce the firm registration if there isn't any money left from the fees they paid? I hope you're not going to be raising licensees' rates, license fees for that. But it seems the board is going to go in the hole on this one. So I just don't know if that's been taken account of in your budget. Thanks.
I would point out to the board that the overall totals for fiscal month 11, we're showing a reversion of over $234,000. So I think that we'll be in a position to be able to fund that. And just for the newer members, that is the amount. That amount will go down. As I said, there will be additional expenses that will hit for the end of the year, but that will be, they won't substantially change that number. And that amount will go back into, if you look at the expenditure projection report as our checking account, if you will, the amount that's left over goes back into our savings account, which you'll find on 23. It's not really a savings account, it's our main fund, but it helps the newer members kind of understand where our money is housed. So if turning to the overall fund condition on page 23, if you go down to the months in reserve, you can see that we are projected at 8.1, 9.1, 9.1, 8.6. We don't go down really until 2 budget years out from us. So it's quite a ways down the road. Typically, the board is concerned whenever we get close to the 6-month threshold, the months in reserve, because if we drop below that, we're not able to fund the transcript reimbursement fund. Since that's a major part of what we do, that's a very important thing. I'm not concerned with that right now because we have received that grant or the one-time $500,000 transfer from the general fund. And so we have a few years where we don't have to fund out of our savings account, if you will, out of our main fund. We'll be able to fund with the general fund money, the transcript reimbursement fund. Are there any questions on the overall fund condition?
No, not a question. Not a question, just a comment, if I could, through the chair. When I was chair with staff and board a few years ago, we increasingly became very disciplined in our expenses and limited meetings and just expenditures. And we made huge policy decisions. I think it's been noted before, one of those, firm registration, just to meet our needs and ensure critical services were continued. So when I look at this budget and our fund balance, I think we should feel good about what's been accomplished and where we are today. We made a lot of hard decisions and tightened our belts, and it's now a working budget where we are nowhere close to the 6 months in reserve that we have dropped down before. So I just, even for the new members, I want you all to realize that this budget is a good turning point. And I think concerns around new programs, I think any new program you put in and start will have some costs in the beginning that may be a little bit heavier lift. But once specifically firm registration continues, I think it will be smoother and less costly, and more than anything, it's going to be an efficient program. So I think we should all feel really positive about the budget before us.
Thank you for those comments.
This is the moderator. We do have a request for comment from someone logged in as Noel Otoboni. Noel, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone so that you can make your comment.
Speak up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's really difficult to hear some of the speakers
We-
and the mask. I understand that all, but turning the head, it's like it's really muffled. Like I'm missing half of what is being said. If the speakers could speak into their microphone, it would be appreciated.
Okay, we'll try to do a better job. Thank you for letting us know because we
Okay.
want everybody to be able to hear.
It's far away. It's muffled. Thank you.
I have to say, I'm just going to say that as a court reporter in the courtroom, I feel your pain. I've been doing this for, yes, we will do our better job to speak into the microphone, and please let us know. Because we want you to be able to hear.
Thank you so much.
Do we have any other comments, public comment on page 23 of the budget? Any?
And this is the moderator. I see no further requests for public comment.
Thank you. How about, I'm assuming since no one's at the table? Okay. Ms. Benner?
Okay, if there aren't any other questions on that part of the budget, I'll turn the meeting over to Paula Bruning, who can update you on all things regarding the transcript reimbursement fund.
Thank you. One of the requirements of BNP Code 8030 6.10 was that the board provide a report to the legislature by July 1st, 2020. There were specific items that needed to be addressed, so that was accomplished, and that report is now on our website. Since we just finished the fiscal year, I would just report on statistics from fiscal year 2021-22. For the pro bono portion of our program, we paid out over $60,000 in invoices. We received approximately 90 applications. Compared to the prior year, it's a little bit mixed because we just reopened in November 2020, which was almost halfway through the 2020-2021 fiscal year. We received an abundant amount of applications from the pro bonos. I believe they were bringing things up to date from the 2-year closure, like holding on to applications. So we got an influx of those and actually paid out more that first partial fiscal year than we did all of the full last fiscal year. But we still have plenty of funding. As you guys may know, we got a $500,000 grant from the general fund. It's a one-time grant for the TRF. So we have plenty of funding to help the indigent litigants of California. On the pro per side, it was a little bit switched. The program has picked up pace in the year 2021-22. We received more than double the amount of applications. So we are swimming as hard as we can to keep up with those. And so far, well, for fiscal year 21-22, we paid out $27,000 plus dollars, but we also provisionally approved, let me see here, statistics. We have pending over $18,000 still that we provisionally approved for that fiscal year. Does anybody have any questions?
Anyone from the board? No. Any members of the public have a question on the transcript reimbursement fund?
And this is the moderator. As a reminder, we do have the Q&A panel open. If you'd like to make a comment or have a question, you can click on the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your screen and type the word comment and click send. Otherwise, you may also raise your hand by clicking the raise hand icon. There is one next to your name in the participants list or also at the bottom of your Webex screen. And there are no requests at this time for public comment from Webex users.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bruning.
And I'd like to add my thanks to Ms. Bruning for all of your hard work in administering this important fund for our board. Moving on to the enforcement statistics, you'll see those on pages 25 and 26. The data here is from July 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2022. There are no new trends. There are no new types of complaints that are coming in. The numbers are consistent with what we've had for the last few years. But I'm happy to answer any questions if the board members have any. If not, then I'm going to move on to the exam. So it's been a busy year in test land. I feel bad for Kim Kale, who is our licensing and examination analyst. She's really had her hands full. We developed, pre-tested, and recorded another batch of skills exams, and that's a really time-consuming process for a lot of members of staff. We had great support from the Department of Consumer Affairs, who actually did the recording of the videos for us and does the post-production so that they can be uploaded for the online skills portion. But that was a huge undertaking, and so I just wanted to point out that with a small staff, that was a major accomplishment for us. The results of the dictation exam are on page 27. Let's see if I can remember Priscilla's question now. The first one, I knew the answer to it, but now I can't remember the question. Okay, in answer to whether or not we will give out immediate results, we will not. And the reason for that is because we have a four-voice test, and the four-voice setting up of the colloquy can be done so many different ways. And the way that the real-time coach software program works is you load in a grading master, if you will, and it just compares word for word, punctuation for punctuation against what the candidate provides. And so if we provide in the master Q by Mr. Smith, and the candidate says, Mr. Smith Q, there's like 10 errors right there. And so nobody basically will pass the test. So there's no point in giving them failing results every time, when in fact it could just be the way they're formatting it. It doesn't match the master that was given to real-time coach. So all of the tests have to be graded by hand for that very reason. So that's a no, and that's why. The second one, it's the board's pleasure on whether they want to do in-person once a year.
We've actually discussed this before quite a bit, and I remember just from my own opinion, I thought that we would want to have one in person and then the rest online, but then COVID happened, and so that got put on hold, and it's definitely something that we can talk about again. And I know there's all different types of test takers, and sometimes being in the room in that space is important, and others can do it at home. So I do feel for providing different opportunities to pass this test. And honestly, when I look at the numbers, like the total applications, when we used to be in the 3 digits, now we're in the 2 digits, it becomes very difficult or challenging to think about putting aside money for a conference room and all the details that go into that in-person testing scenario. So that it pencils out, but I think we can definitely talk about it, and as we come out of the wake of COVID, I mean, COVID is still here, and we're still masking, so in person, again, is still quite tricky, but we can talk about the future. So those are some of my thoughts on that topic.
And you know, if I may kind of jump onto that, you know, Ms. Hart mentioned different types of test takers. There's certainly an accessibility argument to be made in favor of in-person testing, at least having that option at some point in the course of that testing cycle. Certain folks have a hard time. I mean, I know we're, again, trying to follow as many precautions as we can right now with masking, but just as we saw just now, there's some difficulties with hearing, there are difficulties with reading lips, and so to the extent that we can be as accessible as possible, I do think that, you know, if there is a way for us to be able to provide at least one in-person testing option, it would be, you know, it would be great if we can find a way to offer that in the future.
Thank you. The third question that Ms. Bruning was kind enough to remind me of was the request to identify which schools the RPR candidates attended. And I don't believe that we have a way of doing that, but I can follow up with my staff person. I'm not sure how we would reflect that. It becomes more difficult as people attend multiple schools. So in California, if they're attending a school that we recognize, they may have bounced around to a few of the schools, but it's the school that qualifies them that we keep track of. They become their statistic, and so that kind of works the same way with the RPR. If that's how you got into qualified to take the test, that's as deep as we go. We don't track each school that they went to or how long they went to each school or anything like that. It's possible we could do that. I'm not sure how useful that would be unless we added the material, you know, the data of how long they went to each school. I'm sorry? Yeah, they would be all schools, including out-of-state schools. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't just be California schools.
I think for me, I'm curious what the public speaker was thinking with regards to having the schools listed. What was the goal? And in that, so maybe we can, hopefully she's still online and can
Yeah,
speak to us a little bit about that.
I remember from her comments that she thought that that would be useful information for students that are looking for, if they were successful at the school, then they would be able to take advantage of that program.
There aren't that many programs these days in California, correct?
Well, recognized by California, by the board, but there are lots of online programs.
There are quite a bit.
Yeah.
And a lot nationally as well. Priscilla, did you have anything else to add on that issue?
This is the moderator. Shall I go ahead and request that Priscilla unmute her microphone?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that information. And I should have clarified, I didn't mean immediate results, but I believe you correct the exams, or I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it could be weeks later, as long as they get a score of, they have an idea of their pass rate. It doesn't have to be immediate. I should have clarified that. And then I just wanted to state, speaking to the schools, enrollment is up, so hopefully we get triple digits soon. And then there's only, I think, 11, I'm not sure how many RPR applicants there were. I had the list, and here it is. Okay. Oh, there were only 8. That was 2021, but applicants, I don't think it's that much work is my point to find out what schools those 8 RPR test takers went to. If there were like 100, I could see it being burdensome. There's not that many. And maybe hopefully some of them go to our California schools. If not, where are these students going? I mean, the pass rate of an RPR student or applicant is like 75%. I'd want to know, being a student, where did those RPR students go? I mean, when you look into the program, I mentor, and there's a couple students that brought that to my attention. So anyway, and then the last thing was, well, maybe that was it. Because I do see, you have schools listed already, I think was one of the questions. You have schools on here already, so I don't know. Adding a few more. This list of schools used to be a lot longer, so maybe it'll just be the same as what it used to be. And that's all I have. But thank you very much for all your input. It did help quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
So could I ask the question? Do you think it would be difficult to gather this data? The more facts, the better.
So it seems very easy on the surface. I would want to definitely talk with my staff person before I committed to that, because I don't know. It would involve a change to the application, or it would be a voluntary survey that we would send out to see if they are willing to share that information. I'm not sure what that would look like for a staff workload. And we are asking a lot of that particular position as we move into business modernization. I'm not saying no, but I don't want to commit without talking to her.
Okay, that makes sense. And I would just say, as one of the board members, I support you moving forward with asking those questions, and let's see whether we can do that or not in a efficient and transparent way.
May I ask a follow-up as well?
I'm sorry?
To follow up in that line of questioning, and thank you, Ms. Gwaltney, for those kind of follow-up, but commentary. I know some other boards actually require schools to provide their pass rates for their various licensing exams. I wonder if that is another way, and I imagine that is somewhat different because some of those other boards actually accredit those schools, which is, of course, a different format than ourselves. But I imagine that might cut down on some of the workload and find a different way to still be getting at the core issue. And so, without committing the board staff to more work and more reporting, I wonder if there are some different ways to get at that same level of information. But certainly appreciate that need for more data. And as we continue with that exam portion of the discussion, I certainly I'm finding myself wanting for, more information that we just, haven't been collecting, but certainly along with the business modernization project, I would love to see more of.
And this is the moderator. We do have one additional raised hand from a Webex attendee, logged in as Jocelyn Epperson. Jocelyn, I'd be happy to send you a request to unmute your microphone so you may make your comment.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that she mentioned that the stats that are coming out from the RPR are going to multiple schools, but so aren't the students that are being qualified. So we're getting students that are also at multiple schools that get qualified through our school, but they're not indicated on that stat report either. So even though they made their final destination here, they may have gone to 2 or 3 additional schools that are not listed. So the credit ends up going to us, which is great, but then they also attended as a qualified student on multiple schools. And then I also wanted to bring up the fact about the exam results. I just think that I know that some of the students have taken the initiative to call the board and ask what some of their errors were so that they would have some kind of clue of what they're doing wrong. And they've been told that, they had multiple drops, they had multiple sign change issues, those kind of things, but they still have no idea what they're doing wrong. They don't know whether they're missing words, they're dropping, if it's spelling, if it's, I think there's so many things that their errors could be that we delete that from the student's mind where they kind of go, I don't even know where to go when I go back to school. I'm not even sure where to start because I have no idea what I did wrong. So if you know that you had a lot of sign changes, then that would be something that you would focus on when you went back to school. If you had a lot of drops, then I need to work on my speed because I'm obviously not working that speed. And we're only requiring that they pass one qualifier to get to the CSR exam. My understanding is we can't require that they pass more than that. So it makes it a little difficult on the school's end to make them do more than the qualifier, except test-wise. We can't make them pass 3 qualifiers before we send them to the CSR. So there's different avenues, I think, that haven't been addressed in the sense that the students are still blind when it comes to what they need to go back to school to focus on. And also, I think the stats, I know I'm all over the place, sorry, forgive me. I also think that the stats don't really, they don't give an accurate representation of the students that are attending schools. So we have a lot of students who will leave school, go to work, doing CART. They may come back, to school for a month or 2, and then they come back to school and think that that's, going to be what's going to get them out of school. I'm not to criticize the student, however, that's the times that we're in right now.
30
where
seconds left.
They're more interested in getting a job because they can't pass the CSR exam. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help them progress. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can respond. Yes. So I think that this isn't the first time that the schools and the candidates have heard me say that the license test is not a practice test. This is not a place where you go to get your feedback. That's what happens at the schools, or if you're not going to a school that can help you with that, then you need to do it on your own. That you need to write whatever your practice material is, you need to transcribe it, and then you need to analyze your notes to find out where you're making the mistakes. That's not the function of the licensing board. That's something that you use, that's your educational process. That's how you get to take the license exam. So I just want to be very clear that, we do try to help if somebody takes the time to call board staff. They will take a look at the test. They won't analyze it in detail, which I would encourage people to do on their own time with their own work, not with the CSR exam.
I can also, just thinking from the perspective of an attorney, and when you pass the bar, it's similar. You don't get direction on where you didn't meet the marks, but you, as you said, go through that learning process to figure out. And then also lean on mentors and people in your educational circle to work with you. I do have another question, which have we heard from the associations on their kind of ideas or takes on the dictation exam, where we are with applications, just anything in general, because I know it's been pretty quiet board to association.
So I know that the Deposition Reporters Association and the California Court Reporters Association both have mentor facilities. They have groups to help. I know that both of them are working on the A to Z project, which is a national project that reaches out to teach high school students, or actually anybody, but they're trying to target people coming up as they get to the end of high school. They'll go as low as grade school, but I mean, they'll take anybody. It basically teaches you the alphabet. It's a chance to get people's hands on the steno machine and just find out that there is this career that's available. They haven't reached out to the board in particular with any requests or information or anything like that, but just from being involved in the industry, I know that they are both active in, obviously, recruiting and training.
Okay, they're busy. All right, thank you.
Sure. In the current cycle that we are in right now for the exam, we have the skills exam. We have 92 candidates that are taking it, and 36 of those are first-timers.
That's a good number.
It's
Excuse
up.
me.
It's up. We're happy with that. We're also happy with how stable the pass rate is on the first-time people since we went online. I have no explanation for that, but it's encouraging to see. If there aren't any other questions on the skills exam, I would move on to the two written portions.
Before you do, I just want to say I recognize how much time and effort went into preparing the new test bank, and I just want to thank staff and DCA, Department of Consumer Affairs, for all the efforts in getting those tests ready to go for test candidates. So thank you.
Just the developing process is a lot with the tests, as anybody that's involved with that would know. But we take the time to pre-test them, and then we make additional changes before they're recorded. So it's a very time-consuming process. But we feel like we've got the best quality test that could be out there for the candidates. The results for the two written portions are on pages 31 for professional examination, and I skipped over the English, which is on page 29. Those kind of go up and down. I don't know if there are specific questions.
I suppose not a question, but I did note that the November 21 to February 22 numbers do seem high. And I know that that's, again, kind of an ongoing question of can we get more data around who is coming in to take our tests, and you know, can we learn more? And so I'll just leave my comment there, but I'm encouraged to see that.
Okay, moving on to the people that have missed the board's newsletter. We are in the process of transferring over to our social media pages. So with the crunch on staff, we have not been able to produce the newsletter. The drawbacks that we're finding with that is by the time we create like a master matrix of articles, by the time those articles are written and reviewed by all of the layers that need to review it, much of the information is already stale by the time it's published. And so to try to be more efficient and responsive to letting the licensees know and the stakeholders know what we're doing, we're going to keep the same matrix, but as the articles are finished and reviewed and approved, then they will go on the website, out to the email subscriber list. They will go to the Facebook, Twitter, consider, depending upon, the length of what we have going. But we'll try to get it out to all of the different areas that we disseminate the information to. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but that seems to be a way of getting more timely information out to the stakeholders.
This
And that
is the
includes our
moderator.
website as well, correct?
I'm sorry?
And that includes our website as well. That's up to
Correct.
date.
Correct.
And this is the moderator. We do have a raised hand for a comment from Jocelyn Epperson. Jocelyn, I'm going to send you an unmute request.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just put a question in the box, but I was going to mention that the tests were, the scores were given prior to online testing. So it's not that it was something new. I could see if I understand where you're coming from, that this is not, the licensing board is not the place for them to find out what they need to work on. But I just think that they're at a disadvantage to not have a clue as to what they did wrong. Not any feedback. And so I say that because the scores were given prior to online testing. And I do understand how RTC works in the fact that you have to put in a script, and then the script is the test is graded off the script. And then if they, whatever they miss is hand graded, I get that, but they still had an opportunity to find out what they actually missed prior to online testing beginning. And I don't know, I just feel like they're at an unfair advantage now. We're not asking the board to tell them, how to go back to school to figure out what they need to do. We're just asking for them to have some idea of what they're doing wrong, in the sense that, they don't even know that they missed 51, or if they missed 151 or 251 or 951. And I think that's the unfair advantage for the students. And I am speaking on behalf of the students.
Ms. Everson, thank you very much for your feedback. And with that, had you completed your report?
No, I have a final portion. I'm
sorry.
going to circle back around to Ms. Hurt's comment on the business modernization. So I am really thrilled to report to the board that with the help of DCA's Project Delivery and Administrative Services staff, we applied for and received a grant of $930,000 from the Technology Modernization Fund, and that goes to upgrading our exam and our licensing software. That particular fund is administered through the California Department of Technology, and it was established to make immediate investments in IT that will yield quick and meaningful results for the people of California. So our project qualified for that. We would be working on that within the next 9 to 12 months. It's a very short turnaround. The agreement documents are being processed between the California Department of Technology and the Department of Consumer Affairs. They're actually the ones that will be doing the memorandum of understanding. As soon as all of the agreements are done, then the project planning phase will begin. And again, great gratitude to staff, because Kim Kale in the licensing and exam, this is going to be her heavy lift, because she will be the subject matter expert that will basically be boots on the ground getting this project going. I want to give a huge shout out to Paula Bruning, who did all of the graphics for the presentation, and I have to say that the presentation was impressive. And so it would not have been that impressive without all of staff's help, and I really appreciate them all going above and beyond for us to be in the position now of actually being able to improve that. I think that some of the concerns and the questions that we've heard today may be able to be addressed in the business modernization, because we will be able to write in our own data fields. So what will be key is for us to make sure that we have the authority to ask for collecting that information. If we do not, we will be going through sunset review next year. So we have an opportunity to make sure that it's clear with the legislature what we're able to collect so that we can make the best decisions for the consumers.
Through the chair, just a follow-up or a comment question. Do you think that Ms. Kale needs like temporary assistance with this transformation? I know there's not a lot in our staff. You know, we're a small staff, and this is a big, heavy lift. And just wondering if we should think about that.
We actually have it on our radar. We are really pleased with the new OT position that we hired. She's very efficient. She's catching on very quickly, and we think that there's room to develop her. And so depending upon her interest, which it seems very positive, depending upon how that goes, we have a little bit of room there to share the burden. We have the possibility of asking for a half-time position to get part of the transcript reimbursement fund back to its own separate person. If we do that, that also frees up some of Ms. Bruning's time, and she can cover for Ms. Kale's position. Kind of playing it by ear a little bit right now until we find out what's actually going to be needed.
Okay. I would just say if there's some need, you know, let us know and whatever we need to do to support that, because we'll need to get it right at the start. I think it'll then be easier as we go along. And this topic has been on our agenda forever, so I'm very excited, and I'm very thankful for the staff for just sticking with it and continuing to ask and work towards it, and now we have it, and I think everyone will benefit, especially the California consumers, so thank you.
And I want to, I'm sorry, Ms. Tagade? No.
Oh, I just want to echo my appreciation to Ms. Fenner, to Ms. Bruning, Ms. Kale, the whole staff. This is, you know, such an undertaking and the product of so much work, and you know, I recognize what a big upfront, how much upfront work, how much upfront investment this is, but in the long run, how transformative it'll be not only for our consumers, but for our reporters and for, even for the staff. I imagine it will vastly change your ability to do more, and so I'm just so thrilled that this is happening and appreciative, so thank you. And I'll just add actually that you know, having a professional background in this work as well, you know, I think one of the biggest barriers that actually happens in these major projects is a lack of subject matter expertise on the part of the project or either the project managers or the product owners. And that is something that I have no fear of at all. We have no shortage of that on our staff. And so I'm just so looking forward to this. So thank you.
Thank you. And I want to mention that for those of you who don't know, our computer, the CRB's computer system is a DOS-based system. That gives you an idea how old this is. So this is a long time coming. This grant process was an opportunity. It didn't just happen. Lots of hours went into the preparation to make this presentation, and with the support too of DCA, the opportunity was there. So thank you, ladies, very much.
I'm passing on that huge thanks to Sean O'Connor and Jeff Alameda, who were instrumental from DCA of guiding us through it, alerting us to the opportunity, and Jeff will be involved in our project management. I'm really excited about that. I've worked with him on other projects, and he's very thorough. And so putting Kim's expertise with his work ethic, I think that we're going to have a wonderful project. We're going to get great results in a really timely manner. I can't wait to report back to the board on this one.
Very good. Kudos. That is the end of my report. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions. Okay. I don't see any other comments or questions from anyone in the room. I'm assuming no one online as well. No hands are up. Okay. With that, I think that we'll move to agenda item 6, which is legislation. And Ms. Venner, would you like to present the agenda item for us?
Sure. I would like to draw the board's attention to a few specific bills. The first one is 6.4. Sure. Is that better? A little bit better. Okay, let me try and pretend I'm shouting at my puppy. I see. The first bill that I would like to draw your attention to is 6.4, which is AB 1733. This was a bill that went through with a lot of support from DCA boards and bureaus, but didn't finish all the way through. It's not expected to move forward because the immediate concerns on the remote meetings were addressed in SB 189. So I'm not really going to ask the board to take any position on that or discuss it. Going into SB 189, which is 6.5 on our agenda in our board book on page 33, that was signed by the governor on June 30th, and it contains the provisions that allow us to offer remote attendance today for our meeting. The second part of SB 189 that affects the board is that it amended our firm registration language in two very important ways. So first, it clarified that all non-CSR-owned entities, no matter what business type they are, must register with the board. Secondly, it affirmatively set the fee for registration at $500 until January of 2025. Which takes the pressure off passing the regulation package for setting the fee, which has been the piece that has been holding us up for implementing the original 241 language. And I think that it's a good time to go through the process with the board a little bit. SB 241 by Senator Umberg was signed into law last September. Board staff immediately began preparing implementation, and there were a couple different things that we had to do for that. We worked with OIS, as Chair Sunke's mentioned, we're working in DOS-based systems, and they require specialized programming to change. They actually require, there's a process to request the change. That has to be approved before we can even start the changes. So OIS was right on top, DCA's, all of their people were right on top with us and have been working diligently. The other piece was the fee setting, because that has to be set out in regulation. And so in working on some of the regulatory language, ambiguity was discovered on which types of business entities needed to register with the board. And so we've been working since then behind the scenes trying to get clarification from the legislature with that. While working legislatively, while working on the technology part, we also are moving forward, or we're moving forward with the regulations to set the fee. We did receive a request for a public hearing, so that was held, and we did receive public comment, written public comments. Because we received the written public comments, we needed to set a board meeting to approve the response to the comments, which would have to be provided to the Office of Administrative Law. So back at that point in time, which was at the end of May, we were still required to meet in person. And so today's meeting was actually the first time that I was able to get a quorum of 3 people to appear in person. It was before Mr. Manayan had been appointed, and so it seems like a long time, but it was the first available date. So along came SB 189, which was the budget trailer fee, that actually set the fee temporarily. So this allowed the board to post the applications, and so we were able to get those up online as soon as the bill was signed. The applications went up on July 1st. The processing of the applications still had to wait, however, because there are processes that have to take place. It's not just a quick
flip of the switch, or okay, you can start to enter information. So there are approvals that have to come from legal. There are accounting codes that have to be assigned, and it was the end of the fiscal year. So we were not the only project that accounting had to work on, and we know that they worked very hard to get us up and running as quickly as possible. I am happy to report that applications have been received pretty much as soon as we put them online. Yesterday, we were able to start processing them. We're hoping within a day or two that the list or the firm registration code will be active in the license lookup. So the way that's going to work is right now on our website, we have a button called License Lookup. And before firm registration, you could look up an individual licensee either by name or by license number. After the court reporter firm registration becomes active in that same database, which is where we are processing all of the applications, then any user will be able to go into the license lookup screen, use the drop-down menu under the license type to select court reporter firm. And that will drop down the list of all of the people who are registered at that point. You can also look up an individual firm. So say a court reporter wanted to know, hey, can I work for XYZ firm? Are they registered? They can look just for that firm, or they can look through an entire list. As soon as that function is up and running, we will send an email subscription, an email to all of our email subscription list. We'll have it on our website. We'll put it on our Facebook. We'll probably put it on our Twitter. I'm least familiar with Twitter. I always mention that last because that's the one I have the least experience with. I will share with the board that this has been quite the journey for board staff with a million moving parts. There were a lot of things that were changing daily. We have tried our best to share what we know as it became certain, but we absolutely did not want to post information on our website that would be wrong or outdated within days. So we are not a board that changes our own website. In order for us to change anything on our website, we need to put in a request to the web team, and they make changes for us. Typically, they ask for a week's lead time to make any changes that we ask. I want to give a huge shout out to the web team, though, because they have been able to put a lot of our changes on almost immediately, within 24 hours, and having that kind of accommodation is truly appreciated when it's not something that we have control over. We don't control their entire workload. We're just one of the boards and bureaus that they need to service. And so I'm very appreciative of everything they have done to accommodate us with our requests for changes. Additionally, there are a lot of people that helped us in getting the important clarification language that we see in SB 189. I want to say a huge thanks to the governor's office, to the speaker's office, the pro tem's office, and the staff at Business and Professions committees of both the Senate and the Assembly. A huge thank you to many of the folks that helped us from a bunch of different areas of the Department of Legal Affairs, from the director herself to legal and legislative divisions, and the many, many, many worker bees throughout the Office of Information Systems that made the database changes happen. Office of Public Affairs has been helping us get information out as it becomes available. And I want to also say thanks to the Deposition Reporters Association and the California Court Reporters Association for their legislative support, as well as in helping get accurate information out to their members as it became available. We are continuing to work through the implementation stage, which is a very dynamic process. We have already made a change to the applications to make it more clear who needs to sign the applications. We continue to get the word out to firms so that they know it's time to register. I would point out to the board that the initial bill, SB 241, went into effect January 1st. And the legislature in that bill gave us until July 1st to get a list of registered firms up on our website. So initially, the legislature contemplated 6 months for us to get that to happen. And while we don't believe that it will take us 6 months to get the word out, clearly, this is a process. I'm happy to answer any questions on the implementation of SB 241 or the changes that are found in SB 189. Do we have any questions from board members?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment, and that is, I just really want to thank everybody that's worked really hard on making this a reality. I know this has not been easy. I have sat in many meetings discussing firm registration and its importance, and I think another half year or less is nothing compared to the years and years and decades that we did not have transparency, we did not have accountability, and now everyone is going to be held to the same standard. And so I thank everyone that's worked hard to get us to this day, and I know there's more work ahead, but I hope everybody gives us grace to get there, because in the end, we will be able to hold everybody accountable under the same rules, whether they're a firm or they're an independent court reporter. So this is a huge win for the industry in the field.
Not seeing any more comment from the board, I will move to public comment. Well, actually, before, I just want to clarify, you were completed with the whole legislative report? Or? There's one more, but I thought we would want to talk about this section of it, the firm registration, before I moved on to the final. Okay. Do we have public comment? How about we open it online first, since we started that way? Any public comment online?
Yes, we do have 2 raised hands. One from someone logged in as Kimberly D'Urso. Kimberly, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning to the board and the attendees. My name is Kimberly D'Urso, and I'm the president of Protect Your Record Project. And I have a couple of questions from myself to ask about SB 241 and its implementation. And this is relevant to Ms. Hurd's comment about holding everyone to the same standard and accountability. Number one, will RICs be identified and published so that if complaints arise for a particular firm, the complaint can be made efficiently in the future? Because remember, the RIC is responsible. Number two, I personally have been told by at least one firm that their RIC is a silent partner. Isn't that a conflict of interest? And that goes to the accountability, and that's questionable. Number three, another firm said that they won't name their RIC. When I asked, they said they were registered. I asked who their RIC was. They said that they didn't feel comfortable stating that. And so my question is, can they keep that information about an RIC confidential, or does SB 241 compel the firm to identify their RIC? Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Urso. I can answer the reporter in charge part. That's part of the application, and it's my understanding that it will be part of the license lookup. Thank you, Ms. Banner. Further comment online?
Yes, we do. We have a raised hand from someone logged in as Noelle Ottoboni. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. After listening to all the work that's gone into this, and I can't even imagine the hours and hours and time and money that's been spent on this, I just would like to make this comment to raise it to your awareness. I had sent the board an email maybe a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember when, but I never got a response. But my concern with this registration list, I didn't even think about this until it happened to me. Somebody approached I'm a small firm. Somebody approached me and started questioning me if I was registered. And the feeling that I was getting from them is that they had been told that, you know, a registered firm is, you know, the legit firm, and you know that if I'm not registered, you know, I'm not legitimate. And I realized at that point that these big companies possibly, and I would think pretty strongly, can possibly use this registration as a marketing tool. And now there's going to be a list that has all the quote registered reporters on it. And if you're a sole proprietor like I am, and I'm not on it, it's going to be a disadvantage to me because of the business savvy people that are going to flip it to their advantage to gain business. So I had written to you about possibly just throwing out there like how the bar has, if you look up a person online, why does it have to be so complicated where the registered firms are different than the licensed reporters? Shouldn't there just be one list like it's always been, and you look up a licensee, and if it's, you know, a big company, like let's say, I'll name names, Esquire, you know, you hit in Esquire, it says registered. Like, why is there a separate list that's going to separate things and make things more complicated for the consumer? Because the consumers and a lot of attorneys,
30 seconds left.
most attorneys do not understand the distinction, and what they're going to be told to get by salespeople is going to be different. And I'm throwing out that we should only have one list that you look up and it says registered, licensed, end of story. Like, it's a lot of work that you guys are going through and money for something that's making things more complicated to me.
Time's up. Thank you. And our next request for public comment is from
Actually,
a caller.
before we move to that next public comment, Ms.
Certainly.
Benner, did you have a comment?
So the registration, I would comment that the registration is available for firms that are 100% CSR owned. So we have a separate application for that, and there's no charge for them because they've already paid their license fees. There's a reason that we can't have one list. It's actually a different license type. The firms are registered, they're not licensed, and so there's a differentiation there that would prohibit us from making them one single type of license, if you will, or one single list. But we've tried our best to make it easy for people to look up if somebody is licensed or registered. It's the same spot, it's the same database, it's the same, it's just a different drop-down menu.
Thank you. And the next public comment online?
Yes, there is a request for comment from someone who's calling in from area code 909. And if you are on a cell phone, you can unmute yourself by clicking *6.
Hello, good morning. This is Jamie Asbury, president of Deposition Reporters Association of California. And I just wanted to kind of second what Ms. Hurt's sentiments were regarding firm registration and really all of the undertaking that's been done to get this finally implemented. We understand at Calgary that there's going to be some bumps in the road and it's not going to be a perfect rollout, and we are here to support our membership in and also helping the board disseminate information and any confusion that is going on to just help explain it to our licensee members as well as just CSRs as a whole in the state. So here at Caldera, we just really appreciate all of the board's hard work and the communication that they have been able to give us, and we look forward to seeing how this new implementation rolls out. And we've been working on this a really hard time. So again, I just thank everybody that had immense impact on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we
do we have further comment online?
Yes, we do. We have a request to comment from Kimberly DeUrso.
Actually, I believe that Ms. DeUrso started us off, so if I think we'll move to the public comment in the room.
Thank you.
Good morning. Let me take my mask off. Kelly Shane Line, CSR 13476, representing Protect Your Record Project. I just have one question. Will each firm that is under a parent company be required to register? So we have a lot of bigger firms that have acquired smaller firms, and it gets pretty muddled as it gets down of who actually is owning these firms. And so will each of those entities from the parent entity have to register and be on the list? And thank you.
We're going to have to take a look at the application and evaluate and see where we are with that. I don't have that answer right now. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Hello, Charlotte Mathias again. I've got a few questions for you. Are there any registered firms as of to date?
We started registering yesterday.
Are there any approved registered firms as of to date?
Yes.
Okay, how many?
I don't have that list because they're in the process.
Can you give me
I can tell you that we've received approximately 90 applications. About 45 of them are from CSR-owned firms solely. I believe she was able to process 24 yesterday when it became available.
Okay, so they are going to be approved firms then soon?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you had 90 applications. That was my second question. Thank you. On the license lookup, is that the license verification that's on the board? It's not called lookup, it's called license verification. Is that the same place?
Do you have that? And actually, I would prefer not to do this as a Q&A.
Yeah, so if you can just let me know. I didn't know if you were creating a new place or is it the license verification that's on the website?
As soon as we have that up and running, we'll put an email out for you.
License search, thank you. Okay. If the board knows without a complaint being filed that somebody is practicing in California that is not registered and needs to be registered, so let's say somehow you find out there's a firm called Happy Days. I think we've used that example before. Happy Days Court Reporting. Are you going to send them a letter to say register, or are you going to wait for a complaint? Because when Paula and Connie showed up to Protect Your Records webinar, you stated that complaints can come from the board. So I'm wondering if you know that somebody is practicing or providing court reporting services in California and they're not supposed to be, are you going to stop them? Are you going to expect us to be privatized as certain licensees to go out and catch all these people for you?
As it comes to the board's attention, we will send the applications out.
So even if you know yourself that this is
correct.
Okay, great. I want to make sure you guys aren't going to wait for us to find them. So I'm a little confused. So you said that you thanked DRA and CCRA for sending out communication to everybody that was accurate. So I have asked, and I have not gotten an answer on an email, about in a nutshell, the board will not discipline court reporters for working for unregistered firms. Is that correct? The board is not going to, until the firms are registered, will not be disciplining court reporters, because that is what their announcement stated, and that was something I wanted clarification from the board. In a nutshell, the board will not discipline court reporters for working for firms and will not discipline unregistered firms for providing services. Very close to that language. Was that accurate?
The court reporters board can't say what we're going to do for discipline because we look at each complaint individually on an individual basis. So we can't make the broad statement about what we will or will not do. What we do is encourage people to look at all of the facts. Much like we do when we look at it, we consider all of the facts. For instance, is the registration even available to be looked at yet?
Right, but I thought that I know my 30 seconds is about up, but I will say that language really implied that keep working for these firms and you guys won't even entertain it. So that, I don't necessarily believe that was accurate, and that was why we wanted clarification on that.
I just want to say that this is a new program that's been in the works for, did I hear 2009? Way before I got on this board. I want to reiterate what Yvonne said earlier. What became effective in January, the legislature gave the board till July 1 for it to be effective. I would encourage everyone to just take a breath and let's get some time for the whole process to be effectuated, put in place before questions are asked. Who's going to be, first of all, the board doesn't punish anyone. The board just is here to ensure that people are following the rules. And I think it's, I just want to say, please, I think I would encourage everyone to take a breath and give some time for this to be implemented, and let's see how the process is going to roll out, because this SB 189 just went into effect July 1, clarifying the issues that were lingering and in preventing us from moving forward. So again, I want to reiterate to staff, thank you for all you've done to get, I know you've made a Herculean effort to get this in place, and we won't rehash it. I would say, I think we already moved from online. Do we have further comments?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that, Chair. I think that was a really important point to be made. It is a new program. There will be some bumps. There will be details. I mean, there will be a point where we will be able to sit down and be critical about what we've created to see how we can make it better, but we're not at that stage yet. We are really trying to figure out the basics of this. And so while I do appreciate the questions from the public, and I've written them down so that we can follow up with them individually, I do think we need to give each other grace to make sure that we can hold everybody accountable and it's transparent. It's our goal. It's the goal that we've had since the beginning. It's the whole reason why many of us has worked really hard to get firm registration and to make that a reality. So questions are good, but let's just give it a moment to be created and implemented, and then we can work together to improve it.
Thank you. I believe you had
This is
one final issue. Okay, let's take that comment online.
Okay, so yes, this is the moderator. We have one person who has not yet spoken and 3 requests from people who have already spoken. Which would you prefer that I recognize?
I believe we're just going to take the new comment.
Thank you for your instruction. And Mary Pierce, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mary Pierce, I'm the immediate past president of the Deposition Reporters Association of California. And I'd like to actually ask you to go back to Charlotte Mathias's most recent question, because perhaps she phrased her question too broadly. I think it's only logical to conclude that until you post a list of registered firms, that everybody is free to operate as they were before, because how can they be held to working for only firms on the list if it's not posted. So if we ask the question just as narrowly as, will anyone be disciplined for not consulting that list and abiding by it until it is posted?
That is something that we can only address on a complaint by complaint basis.
Well, but how can someone adhere to the list that's not available to them?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not illogical to conclude that you wouldn't penalize someone for not adhering to the list when it wasn't available to them, correct?
I'm sorry, did you say it's not illogical or logical?
It's not illogical for us to believe that we won't be disciplined should we work for a firm that may or may not be, because we can't discover whether they are.
Through the chair, can legal kind of chime in to this nuance that I think, I mean, if there isn't a list, we can't hold you to the list.
Thank you.
Conversation.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to join the board today. My name is Grace Arupo Rodriguez. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director from DCA, but I am here in my capacity as board counsel today. We appreciate the comments that we are hearing, but I think you are making the arguments that we're all thinking. So to the extent you want an affirmative answer of, is the board going to enforce something, yes or no, we are at a point, as we're all reminding everyone, the law, as clarified, just went into effect July 1st. We are in the process of accepting registrations for these firms. So to the extent, you know, you're asking, when is the board going to discipline anyone? Is the board going to take enforcement action? The board is not going to affirmatively say yes or no to that, because it is going to be, as Yvonne has stated, and I think a number of you are recognizing as you make your comments or raise your questions, it is going to be on a case-by-case basis. How do you discipline someone for working if the firm they're working with isn't on the firm registration list? And to that point as well, I mean, that is only one aspect of discipline that the board can go after someone for. So it is really, truly a case-by-case basis. Again, we appreciate the concern and the interest, but as Board Member Hurt has encouraged all of us, and our chair has said as well, let us take this time to breathe, to take the time to allow this to be effectuated and enforced. But you know, pushing for a specific affirmative response of when is this going to happen, when is this all going to roll out, we are working as diligently as possible, and as soon as that information is made available, we will do that. And I think that's the commitment that Yvonne and the staff of this board have made, is to get efficient information out as quickly as possible, but also correct information. So we don't want to you know, put out information that will change in a few days. Had we been doing that throughout this whole process, it would have gone back and forth, because as we all know, in seeing how quickly SB 189 came into effect, a lot of that was happened very quickly, and it happened at a pace that had we been trying to update everyone, we wouldn't have been even able to keep up, because even the folks that were working on the drafts, there were changes coming in different hours of the day. So, you know, there are just times when, you know, we want to get information out, but we just can't. But with that, I just wanted to express the thanks to everyone for all of their interest in this and the passion that is clearly evident here, but to give us some time to just implement this. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there is, unless we have any other new comments online, then Ms. Fenner, I will allow you I would ask you to finish up with your report, and then we will be taking a break.
I would request the board to let the online people ask questions or do their comments. This is pertaining to our livelihood, and this is a huge thing, and I understand that we need to take a breath, but I respectfully ask that you at least let the people get their comments.
Thank you. Actually, did you want to finish up? Why don't, because it's 10 after, why don't we go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back. Thank you. Okay. I'll call this meeting back to order. So the question has been asked. I know that we've got some people that would like to make, to some people that have spoken previously from the public that would like to make further comment. And I will poll the board as to your pleasure on whether to open that back up, as it's not, as everybody was aware going in, you had 3 minutes to make comments. So,
I mean, just from my perspective, it's not a town hall meeting, it's a business meeting, and the procedures are typically everyone gets 3 minutes per agenda item, so I am secure with continuing with that, and all questions can come to us in the form of emails and phone calls to the board. I would say many of those questions we may not have an answer right now. Anyway, as we stated, we're in the very beginning implementation stages. So I would vote in favor of 3 minutes per public speaker on agenda item.
Thank you.
I'll echo Ms. Hurt's comments that unless there are any new speakers, I believe that each speaker should have just the 3 minutes, and otherwise perhaps it's prudent to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manayan, do you have input on this issue?
Not really, just concur with the rest of the board on this. I think we can just move forward and keep it 3 minutes on each item and then move forward.
Thank you. I do understand we have a new member of the public that wants to make a comment online.
That's correct. Shall I go ahead and recognize that person?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Someone logged in as Holly Moose. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning.
Hi, this is Holly Moose, CSR 6438. And I don't have a question. I'd like to thank the board for pursuing this and hanging in there. This issue of there being an unlevel playing field in our profession was first recognized, I don't know, some 25 years ago when all the gift giving came to light and started exploding. And that's a long time to work to solve all the issues that came up along the way. And tremendous progress has been made to level the playing field, and I appreciate the board's tenacity. So thank you. And as to Noelle's point, I would agree with her that these big boxes will distort the purpose of this list and claim that they're somehow special and that licensees are not okay to work for. That's what they do best. And unfortunately, many reporters will not understand that. That's not true. And I would like to see one list of agencies that are A-okay to work for, period, if that's at all possible. And that's the reason for my statement. Thank you again for all your time and efforts. Much appreciated by me.
Thank you, Ms. Moose. Any other new comments online?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have one further comment in person.
Hi, my name is Joanne Bryce. I'm CSR 3321. I've been a reporter for 46 years. And I did have a question on if you will be defining wholly owned in, for the registration, as there are several people or several companies who think that they are wholly owned, but they have people who are not CSRs as board members or officers in their firms. So is wholly owned, does that include all of that as well? I mean, you don't have to answer it now. That's something to actually think about for people who think that they do not have to register. But I believe that they probably do.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing is I want to say this calmly. I just want to say that it was not lost on me that when Charlotte was asking what Ms. Fenner said about what CCRA and DRA said was accurate, she said everything was accurate in what they said. When she asked the certain part that was attributed to the CRB, that was not allowed to be answered, and Ms. Sunkes and Ms. Hurt both diverted and talked about something completely different than what was asked. Had nothing to do with, it was just whether those comments were accurate. Thank you.
I just want to point out that I'm not trying, there's nothing specific about I was not trying to deflect or redirect, and it was just, inadvertent, no, I shouldn't say, it was just coincidental timing. Trust, I do not have an agenda item, so that was just happenstance that it was that, it happened to relate to that.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. We want firm registration to work. We want everyone to definitely have a level playing field, as Ms. Moose said, and so we're all working to that end. I think, as I said before, everyone's asking really good questions, and so we're going and writing them down, and we're going to come back with those. I think a lot of folks want answers right now, and I get that, and we're getting to that point where we will be able to provide those fine details. We're just not there yet, and any questioning that I'm doing, it's all for the benefit of the board. I want a successful industry.
My comment was directed specifically to that question, and you just did the same thing that you did before. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm not quite sure what is that something we're doing specifically other than sharing our opinion about this matter. And as a board member, we were appointed to share our opinion on all matters. And there's no conspiracy or other than we want this industry to work well. And so we're going to do what we can. And that's why we've stuck into it. And I think we said earlier that everyone receives 3 minutes. But that was somewhat ignored a moment ago.
To know if I was going to get my question answered. That's what Joanne was asking. My question was never answered.
And I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the input. I believe, Ms. Fenner, you were going to finish up with this agenda item.
The final bill of note is item 6.10. It's on page 34. It's SB 1443 by Senator Roth. This bill is one that extends our sunset review date an extra year. It's not just applicable to the Court Reporters Board. There are several boards that were sunsetting in the same time period. So this, in effect, gave us 1 extra year, which I would say is very lucky for us considering how much we've gone through this year. It's nice to not have to work on sunset until next year. I'm just very appreciative to Senator Roth for that, and would encourage the board's support of this bill.
Absolutely. Thank you.
When will this bill be decided upon?
Before the end of the year, because it has to be done, they all have to be signed before September. It's non-controversial. It doesn't have anything unexpected in it, if you will. So there should be nothing that would hold it up.
So I would recommend that the board instruct the staff to prepare a letter supporting 1443 for that extension of time. As someone that's worked on sunset bills in the past, every minute that we can get to have additional time to prepare, I think, is important, and we should support that.
Thank you. That was a motion, correct?
Yeah, I don't know if we need a motion to do that, but I'd be happy to make one. I'd like to move the board instructing the staff to prepare a letter to support SB 1443, which is an extension in the sunset bill preparation.
Thank you. There's been a motion moved by Ms. Hurt. Is there a second?
I would like to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bruning? Public comment. I apologize. Thank you. Do we have public comment on that motion?
This is the moderator. I'm opening up the Q&A option of Webex to allow for public comment on the motion on the floor. If you do have a request to comment, you can type the word comment into the text box and click send. As an alternative, you may raise your hand. And I see no requests for public comment at this time on this motion.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this motion in the room? Ms. Bruning, would you please poll the vote?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Brewer. As absent, Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Mr. Manayan?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Gade?
Aye.
Ms. Sunkeys?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes my report on legislation.
So we'll move on with agenda item number 7.
As I mentioned in my report on legislation, the passage of SB 189 obviated the need for urgent passage of the fee regulation that you see before you in this agenda item. If the board would like to withdraw the package and start over again before the fee expires in 2025, it may do so. Staff's recommendation to you, however, is to continue on with the package. Substantial work has already been done all the way through public comment. So there seems to be an advantage to completing the package for submission to the Office of Administrative Law. Should the need arise for clarification, further clarification down the road of the law, the board can propose a new regulation as needed in the future. If the board concurs with moving forward, I will turn it over to our Regulations Counsel, Danny Rogers, to present the proposed responses to public comment for the board's consideration.
Good morning, board members. I'm Danny Rogers. I'm Regulations Counsel for the board. For your consideration are the proposed responses to public comments received regarding proposed section 2450 of the California Code of Regulations. This regulation will establish the fee for, yes.
I apologize. I think first the board would like to determine whether it would like to move forward with this agenda item or not. I think that
Understood, Grace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Okay. Oh, thank you. So I will poll the board to find out if you want to move forward on this agenda item. Move the regulation forward.
I just have one quick question that maybe Ms. Finner can just outline. If we were not to, how much more time would that add to this process?
Well, we'd have to start over because we did file the regulation package with OAL. We have a year to complete the process. So if we don't finish this as it stands, then we would start over again with a new package.
And if we wanted to make any future edits, what is the process or procedure?
We would just start with a new package.
Okay, period, the end. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would like to continue on. We know how long it takes for these items to work its way through the different stages, and there is a future to make appropriate edits afterwards. So that's my thoughts.
Mr. Gade?
Yes, I feel similarly. Given how much work has gone into this process already, I think it is excellent that we are ahead of the timeline now and can move forward. So I would appreciate the ability to move forward on this.
Thank you. Mr. Manayan?
Yes, I think we should move forward.
Thank you. I agree. I concur. So we'll go back to Danny. Ms. Rogers?
Yes, ma'am. So to pick up where I left off, as your materials indicate, the board held a public hearing regarding the proposed regulation on May 31st. No one appeared to offer comments at that hearing, but we did receive one letter containing several separate comments regarding the proposal. So the board must consider and approve the proposed responses to the comments before we can submit the final rulemaking package to the board. Before you in your materials are the detailed responses prepared in conjunction between staff and I. And if you have any questions regarding the responses, I'm happy to answer those. If they're acceptable to you, the proposed motion is at the bottom of page 35 of your materials. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. All right. Are there any comments from the board in regard to the response?
I would just say maybe no questions, but just thanking those who responded to the letter that was put forth with final statement of reason. I think it's very clear and appropriate, and we can move forward.
Thank you. If there are no further comments from the board, I will move to public comment. And we'll start first online.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and I'm opening up the Q&A section of Webex for opportunities to publicly comment. If you look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your computer screen or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device, the other option you have is to raise your hand using the hand logo at the bottom of the computer screen. I'll give people just a moment to locate those features if you do have public comment on this regulation response. And I see no request for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment in the room?
So I was the, Charlotte Matthias, sorry about that. I was the one that wrote the letter because I did have quite a few questions and you addressed most of them, but one that's not addressed, and I do want an answer to this one. Who came up with the number of 10 firms? I'm just wondering where that number, where was it pulled from? They were going to, in the regulatory paperwork, am I on the wrong subject?
We're welcome to take, or I'm
No, I
glad
don't know.
to
I want to
take
make sure I'm on the
comment.
right subject. We're on the regulatory paper that went out. Correct.
Yes.
So it suggested in there that the board estimated there would be 10 firms that would be required to register the first year and 5 the second. I just want to know, where did that number get pulled from? Where did 10?
The board had no estimate, but we had to put a number in, so it was pretty much just pulled from thin air.
Okay, so, wow, okay, I don't even know where to go with that, except that.
At the end of the day, it didn't matter to the board because we're going to register whoever applies. We're going to deal with each of the people, and it didn't really matter if it was 10 or 100 because we didn't know what the universe of firms that were out there, and it didn't matter at the end of the day.
Including for the work for, is it Paula that has to do this, or whoever?
Paula's not involved with it, but yes, no, I understand. There is staff time involved, but.
Right, so right now you've got 45, I think you said, when you estimated 10, but I know there's going to be more. There just has to be, because I get emails and solicitations from hundreds of firms that I know that are not CSR owned. I just don't know if the board realized what a bigger registration task you have on hand coming your way than you estimated, and I just didn't know why you didn't reach out to maybe CSR firms or somewhere to get better educated on how many firms are actually practicing in our state that are not CSR owned. I just think that was kind of surprising.
Thank you. this is our team, and I'd like to just remind everyone that this is a public comment period, and we'll definitely, first of all, thank you for your comments and thank you for coming here and participating. We'll definitely take that under consideration and moving forward. But again, just to remind, this isn't a town hall, so sometimes we might not be prepared to respond to your questions. But if you have any specific written comments, we're happy to review those. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manayan. I'm sorry, no further, are there any further public comment?
No comment, no questions or comments online.
Thank you. And I can't believe do we have any further comment or a motion from the board?
If there's no comment, I'll motion.
I'll second. Thank you. So we have a motion to approve the response and move that forward, the regulation packet forward, and a second. Ms. Bruning, would you please poll the board?
I'll just clarify before you take the roll that the language of the actual motion appears on page 35. And I just want to confirm with Mr. Manayan and Ms. Hurt that that was the language of the motion that you intended to move and second.
That is correct.
And then I would say, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Bruning?
Do we need to ask for public comment on the motion, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, go ahead, just so that it is the motion in the packet.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on the motion?
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A feature of Webex to solicit public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, click on the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your computer screen, type the word comment, and click send. The other option is to raise your hand. The hand icon is at the bottom of the Webex screen. Potentially, if you're on a mobile device, it is behind the 3-dot other options. And I do see a raised hand. I will remind all participants you have 3 minutes. And this comment is from someone logged in as Noel Ottoboni. Noel, I'm sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
I'll make this really quick. I just wanted to comment, and I don't know if it's on point, but when considering the fees for the registration, are you taking into consideration, or would you take into consideration factoring in the costs of that one time a year in-person test cost, so that it affords more reporters to be licensed? And I just think it would be a good means of getting some income to make that happen. Just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you for the comment. I want to remind everyone that we are discussing just the motion on the regulation. The motion in the on page 35. Any other public comment?
I see no further request online.
And I am not seeing anyone in person. Do we move? Roll call vote. Yes, we can take the vote. Thank you.
Ms. Brewer is absent. Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Mr. Manayan?
Aye.
Mr. Gotti?
Aye.
Ms. Sunkees?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are moving on to agenda item 8, which is the licensure of voice writers. Ms. Fenner, will you start us off, please?
Since the last meeting, I have been speaking with stakeholders and legislative staff on the licensure of voice writers. I've also been doing some research and looking at language that's used in other states that already license voice writers. I'm encouraged to report that we seem to be getting some growing support as people understand more and more what exactly voice writers do. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move this forward. The item is informational only, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I echo your comments about it. It seems like more people are getting educated on the topic of what voice writers are, and the fact that they're not a digital monitor. It's a court reporter using their voice, as opposed to what I do is I use a machine. So I would ask if there's any public comment on this agenda item, and we'll start online.
This is the moderator, and I'm opening up the Q&A feature of Webex for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your computer screen and type the word comment, or raise your hand using the hand raise icon. I do see one request from someone logged in as Natalie DL. And Natalie, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. And Natalie, if you get the request, you click on the unmute button. And it looks like Natalie may be, oh, there you go. You're unmuted.
Unmuting.
There you go.
I'm one of the voice writers, and I was first a machine writer. And I just wanted to just make just a small comment to say thank you for even considering this. I was a machine writing student for many, many, many years. And I got up to high speed, and then I had a stroke. So I started all over again to build myself back up. And when I got to about 160, then I switched to voice writing because I still had a problem with just the tip of my index finger. But I wanted to thank you for considering this because, you know, it was sad for me to think that I would have to waste so many years that I've dedicated to this. And so voice writing, you have to work with it, but it's just so, it's exactly like machine writing, only using your voice. And I love it. So I want to thank you for considering it. And how soon do you think we can move forward?
I don't have a timeline. I don't believe anybody on the board has a timeline that we can say any time specific. We are certainly, the board as a whole is in support of this, and certainly doing what we can to move the topic forward.
And this is the moderator. We do have one more raised hand for public comment. This is from someone logged in as Rebecca Larson. Rebecca, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. And it looks like you're unmuted.
Hi, I like Natalie, started out with Steno and switched over to voice. And I wouldn't specifically say switched. I took the opportunity I received to be able to try it, and I was able to proceed much quicker. That being said, a lot of that had to do with my Steno background that allowed me to be able to grasp concepts a lot quicker. I did just attend the national conference and did national testing and got my CVR, and I'm looking forward to starting to work. I would love to be able to do it in California. I would love to still continue with Steno as well because I still love it. So I appreciate everything that's been done, and I'm very happy to hear that there's been some movement. I did speak with some reporters there, some voice writers, and if you need any names of anybody that's willing to help you out with verbiage or whatever you want that they use in other states, I can get you in contact, I guess I should say, with somebody that said that they're more than willing to help you work out any of the technical aspects of it. So just wanted to say again, like Natalie, I'm very happy to hear that it's going on, and I also want to say I was looking on LinkedIn. There's 33 jobs for court reporters, and there's 11 of those that are digital reporters. So we can just push to get it done faster, because that's a third of the jobs that are being offered are for digital reporters. So if we get this going and we can get bodies in seats instead of, digital. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
And there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments in the room? Any members of the board?
Yeah, we've talked about voice writing for quite some time, many years. And I remember back in 2018 where we had someone come in and do a demonstration with really great accuracy. And voice writing has been around for a very long time, and it just feels like something we should continue moving forward with. And so I would suggest we appoint a task to review the legislation, so maybe a group in between times to work on this. I'm wondering how other board members feel to support the legislation, like a task force. And to the point, this is something that'll help all abilities, differently abled individuals, whether they're going to move from steno or if there's another pathway. As many court reporters and licensing voice writers we can get out is important for the industry.
So the chair has the ability to appoint a task force chair, and then the chair would, if they need additional members of their task force, they can invite those members. Because our board is fairly small, sometimes around legislative issues, we will appoint one or two members as a task force or subcommittee that can act on legislative matters in between meetings, because we meet so infrequently. I think that's what Ms. Hurt is referring to, so that we can be a little more responsive than having to call a meeting. Although we do have the ability to meet remotely, it is still like a commitment to get everything going.
And if I may, if I may add, just as in your consideration, general recommendation is that because the board is subject to Bagley-Keene, once you do have a majority meeting, you would have to notice those task force if you do have a majority of your board meeting at that time. So generally, the recommendation is, as Ms. Fenner indicated, to have a task force, perhaps with one, possibly two board members, but no more than that. Otherwise, you are going to have to notice that meeting.
Thank you. And I will just ask for guidance. Do we appoint someone now, or just the motion is for the chair to appoint someone, and we can do that after the meeting?
My recommendation can turn into a motion, and I can suggest or make a motion that the chair puts together a task force to be more responsive to the legislation requirements during meetings, or in between meetings, rather.
Can I ask a point of clarification? And so if there's legislation moving forward, would we still need a board vote in order to take a formal position then, or would the action of the task force be sufficient in order to take a formal position?
So it sounds like, if I'm hearing the question correctly, if there's already legislation that moves forward that corrects this, certainly the board can then take an action to support that legislation. But if it's already in effect, obviously it would be more consideration for if the law is in effect, and the board may want the law to be revised or incorporated. So if that's essentially the question. But if there's legislation moving towards this that hasn't yet been passed, it is a great opportunity for the board to weigh in on the matter, to decide whether it wants to take a position or not, or to provide comments for consideration.
And I'll re-ask the question that, is it appropriate for us to, for the motion that Ms. Hurt made, for the chair to appoint after the meeting? Or we need to name someone today to be the chair of that task force?
So it's certainly, given that the agenda item was listed as discussion and possible action, you have some leeway in deciding whether the first motion could be simply to establish a task force, and then you can decide at a later date. But given that it is a task force that the board would then be delegating, the board can take the decision to delegate that to Ms. Hurst if that's what the board would like to do, or you can identify a person later in time. But when you're in later in time, you'd have to come back before the board to do that. Yes, Ms. Barney.
Is it true that the chair can appoint without a motion? Appoint the chair?
Yes, the chair can appoint without it.
Not required to make a motion on that.
Okay.
Correct.
And just for your edification, I know you weren't here. Frankly, I think it was a couple meetings ago. The board did take a position. Well, this issue has been around for years, and a couple meetings ago, the board took a position to direct staff to move forward. There's no specific language. It's in,
we're working to formulate legislation, and so with this small task force, it will effectuate getting there faster than calling a board meeting to talk about it every time there are conversations. And I think to the point, we don't want to have a quorum of the board, so it has to be no more than 2 folks. And so maybe people can say now whether they're interested, and then you can follow up with that appointment per my motion.
Well, since you're raising this, are you volunteering?
I feel like I have done a lot. I am happy to be one of 2. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a second? Well, I don't even, do we? Is there anyone else interested? Actually.
Come on. No.
I would love to lend my expertise, given my legislative background. However, I wonder if it would be helpful to have one of our court reporter members serving alongside Ms. Hurt.
I actually would love to. I would love to be to work on the task force with you.
Okay.
That would be great.
That's wonderful.
If that's appropriate. Okay. So we have we don't need a motion apparently. So do we need a withdrawal of the motion?
No, I think you can withdraw it officially, but again, it's one of those formalities that where we are it sounds like in the history that it's already been brought before and it's a task force. You don't need to do that. Okay. So it's really at your pleasure. But if you're looking for a recommendation, we could simply withdraw it from the record.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if I want to. Yeah. Okay. I will withdraw the motion.
Okay. Thank you. So then we will move on to agenda number 9, which is strategic plan. And Ms. Fenner, may we have an update on the strategic plan?
On page 50, you'll find the updated action plan for the board's strategic goals. As always, if any board member would like to see priority given to any item, please let us know. I would like to point out that this particular strategic plan was developed pre-pandemic, and there may be some other objectives that the board would like to focus on in light of how business has changed over the last couple of years. If so, you might want to consider scheduling a strategic planning session in the spring, even though technically this plan goes into effect through the end of next year. I'm just planting the seed that if you would like to move forward, keep it in mind for scheduling, because it takes some time to get everybody together. That's it, sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. So do we have any public comment before we move to board discussion? Online.
This is the moderator, and I am opening up the Q&A feature of Webex to facilitate public comment. If you do have something to say about the strategic plan, you can look for the question mark icon in the bottom right of your Webex screen, or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Type the word comment and click send. The other option is to raise your hand using the hand icon at the bottom of the Webex screen or next to your name. And I do not see any requests for public comment.
Thank you. Is there any comment from the board?
Perhaps I'm sounding like a broken record, but I just, I look at this list of items and how many of them are done or about to be done, and I'm just in awe of the amount of work that this board has done and that the staff has done under Ms. Fenner's, captaining. And so I just another round of kudos and recognition of all of the work that has been done to, this tremendous amount of work. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I similarly will start off thanking staff for working on all these action items. We've been going at it now since 2019, and it's great to see the status in light of how many other things we've been working on, especially as it relates to legislation. I am curious to some things like investigate real-time captioning standards. Are there opportunities to integrate this in the sunset review or have a deeper discussion about these items? Just curious what your thoughts are.
So in order for the board to take on additional oversight, this is kind of the direction that this is going, if we were going to regulate captioners, then the first thing that we need to do is prove that there's a need to. So it's sort of like, it's actually called a sunrise. It's the opposite of sunset. So it's a legislative process that you go through. You need to bring your data to the legislature and show that there's a need for it to happen. And so then it goes through the process of evaluation, and then it can be assigned to us or another entity for eventual oversight. But the initial step is to find out, is there a need for it? Because we don't, as much as there may be a public perception that we regulate for the sake of regulating, that's not true. Mm-hmm. If it's in response to a problem. So that is our initial evaluation. That's what the initial step would be, is to actually do the exploration to find out if there is a need, if there's a deficiency in training, or if consumers are having issues with the services that they're receiving from their captioners.
And through your experience, how long does the sunrise process take?
I haven't actually gone through it.
Okay.
I've just been advised that that's the process. I would imagine it would be as quickly as any other legislative initiative.
Would our legal have any insight on how long the sunrise process? And the reason why I'm asking is because, as I said, we will be going through sunset, and just wondering, is this a action item that should be elevated right now so that when we get to the sunset process, we can integrate what we've learned? And maybe to your point, Ms. Finner, there isn't a problem to solve, but just curious.
Happy to share the insights that I do have. It does vary from year to year, but generally when a board is up for sunset that year, what happens with the board is called forth to legislative hearings, but at the end of that session, a decision is made. So it's usually with the year that you're up for sunset, it's that year process where you'll be able to determine whether it's going to be resolved within that legislative session, Or there are times when there are hearings and then the motion that's before the legislation at that time they take is to extend your sunset period, yet another extension of time. But typically there are hearings or at least questions. There may be questions that are asked of the board, written questions that you'll be the board would need to respond to. But a lot of prep time usually goes into preparing for the year of your sunset, anywhere from 3 to 6 months prior to that, when you're expected to sunset.
And then with regards to sunrise, is that similar?
Similar, yes.
Okay. I guess on that note, this action plan will be ending around 2023, and we definitely should reassess. And when I think about the social media increase that you've talked about, I look to one of the action items where it states educating consumers about the complaint process. So more of these items will be ticked off, and we probably don't need to add any more. And I would just say take them as you see fit based upon the work that you're doing daily and weekly in the office.
Any other board comment? Mr. Manayan?
No other comment. Again, just want to thank the board for welcoming me today. And I look forward to working with everyone on the next strategic plan. I think there's great things that have happened, and I'm looking forward to continue the progress we make.
Thank you. So then we'll go to agenda item number 10, election of officers. The board is required to elect officers at the first meeting after June 1 of each year. Are there any nominations for the office of board chair?
I'd like to nominate Chair Sunkis to remain as the chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would like to second.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment before we move to board discussion?
This is the moderator, and we do have the Q&A function open for Webex. So if you have any comments on nomination for president, you may click on the question mark icon, type the word comment. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Is there any comment on the nomination for president? I see no online comment at this time.
Thank you. Are there any comments from board members?
I'd like to move the Chair Sunkis as our chair.
Thank you. There has been a motion and a second. Ms. Bruning, will you please call the roll?
Thank you. Ms. Brewer is absent. Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Mr. Manayan?
Aye.
Ms. Tagade?
Aye.
Ms. Sunkis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I would say I look forward to serving as chair for the next year. Do we have any nominations for the office of vice chair?
I would like to nominate Ms. Hurt if she's willing to serve again.
I'm happy to.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any public comment before we move to board discussion?
This is the moderator. If you'd like to make a public comment on vice president, you may look for the Q&A icon, type the word comment. Your other option is to raise your hand using the hand raise icon. And I see no request for public comment.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask Ms. Bruning, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Brewer is absent. Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Mr. Manayan?
Aye.
Ms. Tagade?
Aye.
Ms. Sunkis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving to agenda item 11, future meetings. Per our usual custom, staff will poll board members offline about their availability for dates. Are there any public comments on this topic?
This is the moderator, and the Q&A function of Webex is open for public comment. If you have any comment on meeting dates, you may type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand using the hand raise icon. And I see no request for public comment about dates.
Thank you. Any comment from the board? Thank you all for your participation. If there's no further board business, we will adjourn.